Welcome to a journey through the most fascinating discoveries and mind-blowing facts that science has revealed about our universe, our planet, and ourselves. As you rest and allow your mind to absorb these wonders, you'll travel from the smallest particles to the largest structures in existence, exploring the incredible phenomena that make our reality so extraordinary. Let yourself relax completely as we begin this exploration of the scientific marvels that surround us every moment of every day. Did you know that every atom in your body is billions of years old? The hydrogen atoms were created during the Big Bang approximately 13.8 billion years ago, while the heavier elements in your body were forged in the hearts of dying stars. You are literally made of stardust, a cosmic collection of ancient materials that have journeyed across space and time to come together as you. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the carbon in your DNA, all of these elements were created inside massive stars that exploded in supernovae, scattering their contents across the cosmos. These particles drifted through space for millions or billions of years before eventually coming together to form our solar system, our planet, and ultimately, you. Every breath you take connects you to the ancient history of the universe itself. The human brain contains approximately 86 billion neurons, each one capable of forming thousands of connections with other neurons. If you were to count all the possible neural connections in a single human brain, the number would exceed the total number of stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Your brain generates enough electrical energy to power a small light bulb, producing about 20 watts of power when you're awake. The speed at which information travels through your nervous system can reach up to 268 miles per hour, faster than a Formula One race car. Even more remarkable, your brain is constantly rewiring itself through a process called neuroplasticity, creating new neural pathways and strengthening existing ones based on your experiences, thoughts, and behaviors. Every time you learn something new, you physically change the structure of your brain. Light travels at a speed of approximately 186,000 miles per second, which means it could circle the Earth's equator more than 7 times in just 1 second. Yet despite this incredible speed, the light from distant stars and galaxies has been traveling for so long that when you look up at the night sky, you're actually seeing into the past. The light from the nearest star system, Alpha Centauri, takes about 4.3 years to reach us, which means we see it as it was 4.3 years ago. Some of the stars you can see with the naked eye are so far away that their light has been traveling for thousands of years. When you look at the Andromeda galaxy, the light you're seeing left that galaxy 2.5 million years ago, long before modern humans existed. In a very real sense, looking up at the night sky is looking back through time. The observable universe extends for about 46.5 billion light-years in every direction from Earth, containing an estimated 2 trillion galaxies. Each galaxy contains hundreds of billions of stars, and many of those stars have their own planetary systems. The total number of planets in the universe is so vast that it defies comprehension. Even if only a tiny fraction of those planets could support life, the number of potentially habitable worlds would still number in the billions or trillions. The sheer scale of the cosmos is so enormous that if you reduced the sun to the size of a white blood cell, the Milky Way galaxy would be the size of the continental United States. And the observable universe would be large enough to contain hundreds of millions of such galaxies. Water is one of the most unusual substances in the universe, with properties that make life as we know it possible. Unlike almost every other substance, water expands when it freezes, which is why ice floats on liquid water. If ice were denser than liquid water and sank to the bottom of lakes and oceans, entire bodies of water would freeze solid from the bottom up, making life in aquatic environments impossible in cold climates. Water also has an unusually high specific heat capacity, meaning it can absorb large amounts of heat without its temperature changing dramatically. This property helps regulate Earth's climate and keeps your body temperature stable. Water molecules are also polar, giving water the ability to dissolve more substances than any other liquid, which is why it's called the universal solvent. This property is essential for all the biochemical reactions that occur in living cells. Your body replaces itself constantly at the cellular level. The cells lining your stomach are replaced every few days because they're exposed to harsh digestive acids. Your skin completely renews itself approximately every 28 days. Red blood cells live for about 4 months before being replaced. Your liver can completely regenerate itself in as little as 6 months, even if up to 70% of it is removed. The skeleton replaces itself roughly every 10 years through a continuous process of bone remodeling. Even cells in the brain, once thought to be permanent, can be replaced in certain regions through a process called neurogenesis. In essence, you are not the same collection of atoms and molecules you were 7 years ago. You are a pattern of organization that persists even as the materials that make you up are constantly being exchanged. The universe is expanding, and not just expanding but accelerating in its expansion. Distant galaxies are moving away from us faster and faster, driven by a mysterious force that physicists call dark energy. This dark energy makes up approximately 68% of the total energy content of the universe, yet we have no idea what it actually is. Dark matter, another mysterious component, makes up about 27% of the universe. Regular matter, the stuff that makes up stars, planets, and everything we can see and touch, accounts for less than 5% of the universe. In other words, 95% of the universe consists of things we cannot directly observe and don't fully understand. We are living in a cosmos that is mostly invisible to us, filled with phenomena that challenge our understanding of physics. Time itself is relative, flowing at different rates depending on how fast you're moving and how strong the gravitational field is around you. This isn't just theoretical speculation, but has been proven through precise experiments. Atomic clocks flown on airplanes run slightly slower than identical clocks left on the ground, exactly as predicted by Einstein's theory of relativity. GPS satellites have to account for time dilation effects, or they would give incorrect position readings. An astronaut spending 6 months on the International Space Station ages about 0.007 seconds less than people on Earth due to time dilation. If you could travel near the speed of light, time would slow down dramatically for you relative to people remaining stationary. You could potentially travel thousands of years into Earth's future while experiencing only a few years of time yourself. Quantum mechanics reveals that at the subatomic level, particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until they are observed or measured, a phenomenon called superposition. An electron can be in multiple places at once until something interacts with it, causing its wave function to collapse into a definite state. Particles can also be entangled, meaning the state of one particle instantly affects the state of another particle no matter how far apart they are, even if they're on opposite sides of the universe. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance because it seemed to violate the principle that nothing can travel faster than light. Yet quantum entanglement has been demonstrated in laboratories countless times and is now being used to develop quantum computers and quantum communication systems. The universe at its most fundamental level is far stranger than our everyday experience suggests. The human eye can distinguish approximately 10 million different colors, and under ideal conditions, can detect a single photon of light. The retina contains about 120 million rod cells for detecting light and dark, and about 6 million cone cells for detecting color. The information from these photoreceptors is processed by several layers of neurons within the retina itself, before being sent to the brain via the optic nerve. Your brain then flips the image right side up, fills in the blind spot where the optic nerve connects to the retina, and integrates information from both eyes to create a seamless three-dimensional perception of the world. What you experience as vision is actually a sophisticated construction created by your brain, not a direct representation of reality. Your brain makes predictions about what it expects to see and fills in details based on context and past experience. This is why optical illusions work. They exploit the assumptions your brain makes about visual information. DNA, the molecule that carries genetic information, is incredibly long when uncoiled. The DNA in a single human cell, if stretched out, would be about 6 feet long. Since your body contains approximately 37 trillion cells, if you could line up all the DNA in your body end to end, it would stretch from Earth to the Sun and back more than 300 times. Yet this enormous length of DNA is packed so efficiently that it fits inside cell nuclei that are only about 6 micrometers in diameter, smaller than a single grain of pollen. The DNA molecule is also remarkably stable, with specimens having been recovered and sequenced from fossils hundreds of thousands of years old. The information encoded in DNA is read by molecular machines called ribosomes, which translate the genetic code into proteins at a rate of about 20 amino acids per second. These proteins then fold into complex three-dimensional shapes that determine their functions, and this folding happens automatically based on the sequence of amino acids, following the laws of chemistry and physics. The Earth's magnetic field, generated by the motion of molten iron in the planet's outer core, extends thousands of miles into space and protects us from harmful solar radiation and cosmic rays. Without this magnetic shield, the solar wind would gradually strip away Earth's atmosphere, making the planet uninhabitable. The magnetic field also reverses polarity every few 100,000 years on average, with the north and south magnetic poles swapping places. We know this from studying the orientation of magnetic minerals in ancient rocks, which preserve a record of the Earth's magnetic field at the time they formed. The last reversal occurred about 780,000 years ago, and we're overdue for another one based on the geological record. During a reversal, which takes several thousand years to complete, the magnetic field becomes weaker and more complex, potentially allowing more cosmic radiation to reach Earth's surface. The speed of sound varies depending on what medium it's traveling through. In air at room temperature, sound travels at about 767 miles per hour. In water, it travels more than 4 times faster, and in steel, it travels about 17 times faster than in air. This is because sound is a mechanical wave that propagates through the oscillation of particles in a medium. And the speed depends on how tightly packed those particles are and how easily they can transmit vibrations. In the vacuum of space, where there are no particles to vibrate, sound cannot travel at all. Space is completely silent. When you see explosions and hear dramatic sound effects in space movies, that's pure fiction. Even the largest supernova explosion would be completely soundless in the vacuum of space, though it would produce a spectacular light show and release tremendous amounts of energy in other forms. Black holes are regions of space-time where gravity is so intense that nothing, not even light, can escape once it crosses the event horizon, the point of no return. The gravity of a black hole is so strong because an enormous amount of mass is compressed into an incredibly small volume. For example, if Earth were compressed into a black hole, it would be less than an inch in diameter. At the center of a black hole lies a singularity, a point where matter is compressed to infinite density and the laws of physics as we understand them break down. Time itself behaves strangely near a black hole. If you could observe someone falling into a black hole from a safe distance, you would see them moving slower and slower as they approached the event horizon. And you would never actually see them cross it, because the light from them would become increasingly redshifted and dimmed. From their perspective, however, they would cross the event horizon in a finite amount of time, though they would be torn apart by tidal forces long before reaching the singularity in a process astrophysicists call spaghettification. The human heart beats approximately 100,000 times per day, pumping about 2,000 gallons of blood through a network of blood vessels that, if laid end to end, would stretch about 60,000 miles, enough to circle the Earth more than twice. The heart begins beating about 3 weeks after conception and doesn't stop until death, operating continuously for decades without rest. Unlike skeletal muscle, which requires conscious control or reflexive nerve signals to contract, cardiac muscle cells can generate their own electrical impulses spontaneously. The heart's natural pacemaker, called the sinoatrial node, coordinates these impulses to create the rhythmic contractions we experience as a heartbeat. The electrical activity of the heart is so strong that it can be detected on the surface of the skin, which is how electrocardiograms work. The heart also has its own nervous system, sometimes called the heart-brain, containing about 40,000 neurons that can make decisions independently of the brain in your head. Photosynthesis, the process by which plants convert sunlight into chemical energy, is the foundation of almost all life on Earth. Plants, algae, and certain bacteria capture photons from sunlight using pigments like chlorophyll, and use that energy to split water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen is released as a byproduct, while the hydrogen is used along with carbon dioxide to create glucose and other sugars. This process is astoundingly efficient when you consider its complexity. It involves multiple protein complexes working together in precise coordination, transferring electrons through a series of molecules while simultaneously pumping protons across a membrane to create an electrochemical gradient that drives the synthesis of ATP, the energy currency of cells. All the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere was produced by photosynthetic organisms over billions of years. Every breath you take contains oxygen molecules that were created by ancient cyanobacteria and their plant descendants. The temperature at the core of the sun reaches about 27 million degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to fuse hydrogen atoms into helium through nuclear fusion. This fusion process converts mass into energy, according to Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared. The sun converts about 600 million tons of hydrogen into helium every second, and in the process, about 4 million tons of matter are converted into pure energy. This energy radiates outward from the core, but it takes thousands of years for a photon created in the sun's core to reach the surface, because it is constantly absorbed and re-emitted by atoms in the sun's interior. Once a photon escapes from the sun's surface, it takes about 8 minutes to travel the 93 million miles to Earth. The sun has been shining for about 4.6 billion years and has enough hydrogen fuel to continue for another 5 billion years before it exhausts its supply and begins to die, first swelling into a red giant that will engulf the inner planets, then collapsing into a white dwarf. The Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean reaches a depth of about 36,000 feet, making it the deepest known point in Earth's oceans. The pressure at the bottom of the trench is more than 1,000 times the atmospheric pressure at sea level, equivalent to having 50 jumbo jets stacked on top of you. Despite these extreme conditions, life exists even in the deepest parts of the ocean. Scientists have discovered fish, crustaceans, and even microorganisms thriving in total darkness under crushing pressure. These organisms have evolved remarkable adaptations, including proteins that function under extreme pressure, chemical-based energy production systems that don't rely on photosynthesis, and bodies that are mostly water to equalize internal and external pressure. More people have walked on the moon than have descended to the deepest point of the ocean, making the ocean floor one of the least explored environments on Earth. Your sense of smell is directly connected to the limbic system, the part of the brain involved in emotion and memory, which is why certain scents can trigger vivid memories and strong emotional responses. Humans can distinguish about 1 trillion different odors, far more than previously thought. When you smell something, odor molecules bind to receptor proteins in the olfactory epithelium in your nose, triggering electrical signals that travel directly to the olfactory bulb in the brain. This is the only sense that bypasses the thalamus, the brain's sensory relay station, giving smell a uniquely direct connection to memory and emotion. Each olfactory receptor neuron expresses only one type of odor receptor, but you have about 400 different types of receptors. And different combinations of activated receptors allow you to distinguish countless different smells. Interestingly, about 3% of your entire genome is dedicated to genes for odor receptors, highlighting how important the sense of smell has been throughout human evolution. The Great Pyramid of Giza was the tallest human-made structure in the world for over 3,800 years. From its completion around 2560 BCE until the construction of the Lincoln Cathedral in 1311 CE. The pyramid contains approximately 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing an average of 2.5 tons, with some blocks weighing as much as 80 tons. How the ancient Egyptians quarried, transported, and precisely positioned these massive blocks without modern machinery remains a subject of research and debate. The pyramid's base is level to within just over half an inch, and the sides are oriented to the cardinal directions with remarkable accuracy. The precision of the pyramid's construction is even more impressive when you consider that it was built using tools made of copper, stone, and wood. Recent discoveries of papyrus scrolls and archaeological evidence suggest the pyramid was built by skilled workers rather than slaves, with teams of workers organized into rotating shifts. Tardigrades, also known as water bears, are microscopic animals less than 1 millimeter long that are among the most resilient organisms on Earth. They can survive being heated to 300 degrees Fahrenheit or cooled to near absolute zero. They can withstand pressure 6 times greater than that found in the deepest ocean trenches. They can survive radiation levels hundreds of times higher than the lethal dose for humans. They can go without food or water for more than 30 years by entering a state of suspended animation called cryptobiosis, in which they expel almost all the water from their bodies and reduce their metabolism to less than 0.01% of normal. Tardigrades have even survived exposure to the vacuum of space, making them the first animals known to survive in outer space. When conditions become favorable again, they simply rehydrate and resume normal activity as if nothing happened. These tiny creatures have been found everywhere from mountain tops to deep-sea trenches, from tropical rainforests to Antarctic ice, demonstrating that life can persist in conditions we might consider impossible. Lightning bolts can reach temperatures of about 50,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. The extreme heat causes the air around the lightning bolt to expand so rapidly that it creates a shock wave we hear as thunder. Since light travels much faster than sound, You see the lightning before you hear the thunder. You can estimate how far away a lightning strike is by counting the seconds between the flash and the thunder and dividing by 5. Each 5 seconds represents about 1 mile of distance. Lightning strikes occur about 100 times every second around the world, or about 8 million times per day. A single lightning bolt carries enough electrical energy to power a 100-watt light bulb for more than 3 months. Lightning also plays an important role in the nitrogen cycle. The extreme heat and pressure of a lightning strike can convert nitrogen in the atmosphere into compounds that plants can use, essentially fertilizing the soil. The placebo effect demonstrates the powerful connection between mind and body. When patients believe they are receiving treatment, they often experience real improvements in their symptoms even if they're only given a sugar pill or other inactive substance. Brain imaging studies have shown that placebos can trigger the release of endorphins and other neurotransmitters, producing measurable changes in brain activity and body chemistry. The placebo effect is so powerful that clinical trials for new medications must account for it by comparing the new drug to a placebo in double-blind studies, where neither the patients nor the doctors know who is receiving the real treatment. Interestingly, the placebo effect works even when patients know they're receiving a placebo, as long as they understand that placebos can cause real physiological changes. The color, size, and form of a placebo can affect its effectiveness, with larger pills and injections generally producing stronger placebo effects than small pills. This reveals that healing involves complex interactions between expectations, beliefs, brain chemistry, and the body's innate healing mechanisms. Octopuses have 3 hearts, 9 brains, and blue blood. 2 of the hearts pump blood to the gills, while the third pumps blood to the rest of the body. The blood is blue because it uses copper-based hemocyanin to carry oxygen, instead of the iron-based hemoglobin used by vertebrates. Copper is more efficient at transporting oxygen in cold, low-oxygen environments like the deep ocean. The 9 brains consist of a central brain and 8 mini-brains, 1 in each arm, allowing each arm to operate semi-independently. An octopus arm can continue moving, reaching, and grasping, even after it has been severed from the body. Octopuses are also masters of camouflage, able to change their color, pattern, and skin texture in less than a second to match their surroundings. They achieve this using specialized cells called chromatophores, iridophores, and leucophores that can expand or contract to reveal different colors and create different textures. Remarkably, octopuses appear to be color blind, so scientists are still trying to understand how they match colors so perfectly without being able to see them. The human body produces about 25 million new cells every second. That means in the time it takes you to read this sentence, your body has created hundreds of millions of new cells. Most of these are blood cells produced in bone marrow, but cells throughout your body are constantly dividing to replace old or damaged cells. Despite this massive production rate, the process is usually flawless, with new cells receiving perfect copies of DNA and assembling correctly. However, occasional errors in DNA replication or cell division occur, and your body has multiple quality control mechanisms to identify and destroy defective cells. When these mechanisms fail and defective cells survive and reproduce, cancer can develop. Your immune system also plays a role in identifying and destroying abnormal cells before they become dangerous. Every day, your immune system successfully identifies and eliminates cells that could potentially become cancerous, usually without you ever knowing it happened. Rainbows are created by the refraction, reflection, and dispersion of light in water droplets. When sunlight enters a water droplet, it slows down and bends, a process called refraction. Different wavelengths of light bend by different amounts, separating white light into its component colors. The light then reflects off the back of the water droplet and exits the front, bending again as it speeds back up in the air. The angle at which the light exits the droplet determines which color you see from your particular viewing position. This is why rainbows always appear as arcs, and why the red band is always on the outside of the arc, while violet is on the inside. Each person sees their own personal rainbow, because each person occupies a unique position relative to the sun and water droplets. If you're in an airplane or on a high mountain, you can sometimes see a complete circular rainbow because you're not limited by the ground blocking the lower half. There's also always a second, fainter rainbow outside the primary rainbow, with the colors in reverse order, created by light that reflects twice inside the water droplets. The Voyager 1 spacecraft, launched in 1977, is the most distant human-made object from Earth. Currently over 14 billion miles away, and still traveling deeper into interstellar space. It carries a golden record containing sounds and images, selected to portray the diversity of life and culture on Earth. Intended as a message to any extraterrestrial intelligence that might encounter the spacecraft. The record includes greetings in 55 languages, sounds from nature including surf, wind, and animal calls, musical selections from different cultures and eras, and 116 images encoded in analog form. Voyager 1 is powered by plutonium-based radioisotope thermoelectric generators, which convert heat from radioactive decay into electricity. These generators will continue providing enough power to operate some of the spacecraft's instruments until about 2025, after which Voyager 1 will continue coasting through space silently, taking about 40,000 years to pass within 1.6 light-years of another star. Trees communicate with each other through underground fungal networks, sometimes called the Wood Wide Web. Mycorrhizal fungi form symbiotic relationships with tree roots, receiving sugars from the tree while providing the trees with water and nutrients from the soil. But these fungal networks also connect multiple trees together, allowing them to share resources and information. A large tree can recognize its own offspring and send them extra nutrients through the fungal network. Trees can warn each other about insect attacks by sending chemical signals through the network, allowing neighboring trees to activate their defenses before the insects arrive. Sick or dying trees can send their resources to neighboring trees through the network, ensuring that their nutrients aren't lost when they die. This underground network can connect trees of different species and ages, creating an interconnected forest community that cooperates for mutual benefit. The largest organism on Earth is actually a fungal network of honey mushrooms in Oregon that extends for over 2,000 acres. Honey never spoils. Archaeologists have found pots of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that are over 3,000 years old and still perfectly edible. Honey's longevity is due to several factors. It's extremely low in moisture, typically containing less than 18% water, which prevents bacteria and microorganisms from growing. Honey is also highly acidic, with a pH between 3 and 4.5, creating an inhospitable environment for most microorganisms. When bees make honey, they add an enzyme called glucose oxidase, which breaks down into gluconic acid and hydrogen peroxide, a natural antiseptic. The high sugar content of honey also creates a hostile environment through osmosis. Any bacteria that encounter honey will have water drawn out of their cells, dehydrating and killing them. These properties have made honey valuable not just as food, but also as a medicine throughout history. Modern research has confirmed that honey has antibacterial properties and can be effective in treating wounds and burns. The moon is gradually moving away from Earth at a rate of about 1.5 inches per year. We know this because astronauts placed retroreflectors on the moon's surface during the Apollo missions. And scientists have been bouncing laser beams off these reflectors to measure the distance with extraordinary precision. The moon is receding because of tidal interactions between Earth and the moon. The moon's gravitational pull creates tides in Earth's oceans, and the friction from these moving tides slows Earth's rotation very slightly. As Earth's rotation slows, angular momentum is transferred to the moon's orbit, causing it to move farther away. This same process is also gradually lengthening Earth's day. When dinosaurs roamed the Earth, a day was only about 23 hours long. In the distant future, if the Earth and Moon system existed long enough, the Moon would continue receding until Earth always kept the same face toward the Moon, just as the Moon currently always keeps the same face toward Earth. This would take billions of years to occur. Bananas are naturally radioactive because they contain potassium, and a small fraction of naturally occurring potassium is the radioactive isotope potassium-40. The radiation dose from eating a banana is so small that it's completely harmless, but it's measurable with sensitive equipment. Scientists sometimes use the banana equivalent dose as a unit to help people understand exposure to small amounts of radiation. For example, getting a dental X-ray is equivalent to eating about 5 bananas, and the radiation you're exposed to during a cross-country flight is equivalent to eating about 400 bananas. Many common foods are slightly radioactive, including Brazil nuts which contain radium, carrots and potatoes which contain potassium-40, and lima beans which contain radon. Even your own body is naturally radioactive, containing potassium-40, carbon-14, and other radioactive isotopes. A typical person experiences about 4,000 radioactive decay events in their body every second, but the dose is so small and so evenly distributed that it causes no harm. Dolphins sleep with only half their brain at a time, a phenomenon called unihemispheric slow-wave sleep. One hemisphere of the brain sleeps while the other remains awake and alert, allowing the dolphin to continue swimming, breathing, and watching for predators. Dolphins are conscious breathers, meaning they must consciously decide to take each breath, unlike humans who breathe automatically. If a dolphin's entire brain fell asleep, it would stop breathing and drown. After about 2 hours, the dolphin switches which half of its brain is asleep, giving both hemispheres a chance to rest. The eye opposite the sleeping half of the brain is usually closed, while the other eye remains open and vigilant. Other marine mammals, including whales, seals, and manatees, also exhibit this type of sleep. Some birds can sleep this way too, particularly during long migratory flights. This ability represents a remarkable evolutionary adaptation to environments where continuous awareness is necessary for survival. The average person walks the equivalent of about 5 times around the Earth's equator in their lifetime, covering approximately 110,000 miles. Each step involves a complex coordination of muscles, bones, and nervous system signals. Walking uses about 200 muscles, and your brain must coordinate the activation and relaxation of these muscles in precise sequences to maintain balance, propel you forward, and adjust to changes in terrain. When you walk, you're essentially catching yourself from falling with each step. You lean forward slightly, allow yourself to begin falling, then catch yourself by placing one foot forward, then repeat the process with the other foot. Your inner ear, eyes, and proprioceptors in your muscles and joints all provide information to your brain about your body's position and movement, allowing you to maintain balance without conscious thought. The ability to walk upright on 2 legs is one of the defining characteristics of human evolution, freeing our hands for tool use and allowing us to travel long distances efficiently. Sharks have been around for more than 400 million years, predating dinosaurs by about 200 million years. They've survived 5 major mass extinction events that wiped out most other species on Earth. Sharks have remained largely unchanged for millions of years because their body plan is so successful. Their skeletons are made of cartilage rather than bone, making them lighter and more flexible. They have multiple rows of teeth that are continuously replaced throughout their lives, with some species going through 30,000 teeth in a lifetime. Their skin is covered in tiny tooth-like scales called dermal denticles that reduce drag and allow them to swim efficiently. Sharks also have an incredible sense called electroreception, the ability to detect electrical fields produced by other animals. Special organs called ampullae of Lorenzini, located in the shark's head, can detect electrical fields as weak as 1/1000th of a volt, allowing them to find prey buried in sand or hiding in murky water. Stomach acid has a pH of around 1.5 to 3.5, making it extremely acidic, similar to battery acid. This strong acid is necessary to break down food and kill potentially harmful bacteria that might enter the body through food. The cells lining the stomach protect themselves by secreting a thick layer of mucus that prevents the acid from damaging the stomach wall. The stomach also produces new mucus constantly to replace any that is eroded. Despite these protections, the cells lining the stomach are replaced entirely every 3 to 5 days because they're constantly exposed to harsh conditions. If the protective mechanisms fail, the acid can damage the stomach lining, causing ulcers. Interestingly, most stomach ulcers are not caused by stress or spicy food, as commonly believed, but by a bacterium called Helicobacter pylori that can survive in the acidic environment and damage the protective mucus layer. Butterflies taste with their feet. When a butterfly lands on a flower or leaf, special chemoreceptors on their feet allow them to taste the plant and determine if it's suitable for laying eggs or for feeding. Female butterflies are particularly selective because they need to find the right host plants for their caterpillars to eat after they hatch. Some butterfly species can only lay their eggs on one specific type of plant, so the ability to accurately identify plants through taste is crucial for their survival. Butterflies also have excellent color vision and can see ultraviolet light that is invisible to humans. Many flowers have ultraviolet patterns that guide butterflies to their nectar, serving as landing strips that are invisible to us. Some butterflies migrate thousands of miles, with the monarch butterfly traveling up to 3,000 miles from Canada to Mexico. The monarchs that make this journey are several generations removed from the ones that made the trip the previous year, yet they somehow find their way to the same small patches of forest. A navigation feat that scientists are still working to fully understand. The speed of a computer is often measured in gigahertz, indicating how many billions of cycles per second the processor can execute. Modern processors can perform billions or even trillions of calculations per second. Yet despite this raw computational power, computers still cannot match the human brain in many tasks. The human brain operates much more slowly than a computer in terms of raw processing speed. Individual neurons fire at most about 1,000 times per second. But the brain's massive parallelism allows it to excel at pattern recognition, context understanding, and creative tasks. The brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons, each connected to thousands of other neurons, creating a network of about 100 trillion connections. This massive interconnectedness allows the brain to process information in parallel across multiple pathways simultaneously, while most computer processors work largely in serial, handling one or a few operations at a time. The brain is also remarkably energy efficient, consuming about 20 watts of power while performing tasks that would require megawatts of power if attempted by a computer. Earthquakes release enormous amounts of energy. The magnitude scale commonly used to measure earthquakes is logarithmic, meaning each whole number increase represents about 32 times more energy release. A magnitude 7 earthquake releases about 1,000 times more energy than a magnitude 5 earthquake. The largest earthquake ever recorded, the magnitude 9.5 earthquake in Chile in 1960, released energy equivalent to about 23,000 Hiroshima atomic bombs. Earthquakes occur when stress that has built up along fault lines is suddenly released, causing the ground to shake. Most earthquakes occur at the boundaries between tectonic plates, where plates are colliding, pulling apart, or sliding past each other. The vibrations from earthquakes can travel completely through the Earth, and seismologists use these vibrations to study the Earth's interior structure. By analyzing how seismic waves speed up, slow down, and change direction as they pass through different materials, scientists have created detailed models of the Earth's layers without ever drilling more than a few miles below the surface. Clouds can weigh millions of pounds despite appearing to float effortlessly in the sky. A typical cumulus cloud contains about 1,000,000 pounds of water droplets. These droplets are so small, typically about 20 micrometers in diameter, that they fall very slowly through the air, typically at a speed of about 1 centimeter per second. Updrafts of warm air rising from the ground can easily push these droplets back up faster than they fall, keeping the cloud aloft. When the droplets grow larger through condensation or by combining with other droplets, they eventually become heavy enough to overcome the updrafts and fall as rain. The different types of clouds form at different altitudes and under different atmospheric conditions. Cirrus clouds form above 20,000 feet where it's cold enough for ice crystals to form. Cumulus clouds are the puffy cotton ball cloud that form through convection on sunny days. Cumulonimbus clouds are massive storm clouds that can extend from near ground level up to 60,000 feet or higher, containing powerful updrafts and downdrafts that produce lightning, hail, and sometimes tornadoes. The human tongue can detect 5 basic tastes: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. Umami is a savory taste associated with glutamate and other amino acids, found in foods like meat, cheese, and mushrooms. The old idea that different areas of the tongue detect different tastes is a myth. All areas of the tongue can detect all tastes, though some areas may be slightly more sensitive to certain tastes than others. Taste buds are replaced about every 10 to 14 days, which is why injuries to the tongue that damage taste buds usually heal quickly without permanent loss of taste. However, the number of taste buds decreases with age, which is one reason why older adults often find that food doesn't taste as strong as it did when they were younger. Taste is also strongly influenced by smell. When you eat, aromatic compounds travel from the back of your mouth to your nose through a passage called the retronasal passage. This is why food seems to lose its flavor when you have a stuffy nose. What you experience as flavor is actually a combination of taste, smell, texture, temperature, and even sound. Coral reefs cover less than 1% of the ocean floor, yet they support about 25% of all marine species. Reefs are built by tiny animals called coral polyps, which are related to jellyfish and sea anemones. These polyps secrete calcium carbonate to form hard skeletons, and over thousands of years, the accumulated skeletons of countless polyps create the massive structures we call coral reefs. The vibrant colors of healthy coral come from microscopic algae called zooxanthellae that live inside the coral polyps in a symbiotic relationship. The algae perform photosynthesis and share the nutrients they produce with the coral, while the coral provides the algae with a protected environment and access to sunlight. When corals are stressed by factors like rising water temperature or pollution, they expel the algae, causing the coral to turn white in a process called bleaching. Without the algae, the coral can starve and die. Coral reefs are among the most threatened ecosystems on Earth due to climate change, ocean acidification, and pollution. With many reefs having lost significant portions of their living coral in recent decades. The speed at which fingernails grow varies from person to person, but on average they grow about 0.1 millimeters per day, or about 1/10 of an inch per month. Interestingly, fingernails grow faster than toenails, and nails on your dominant hand grow slightly faster than those on your non-dominant hand. The nail on your middle finger typically grows fastest, while the thumbnail grows slowest. Nails grow faster in summer than in winter, and they grow faster during the day than at night. Nails are made of a protein called keratin, the same protein that makes up hair and the outer layer of skin. As new cells form at the base of the nail, old cells are pushed forward and flat and harden into the nail plate we see. The white crescent at the base of the nail, called the lunula, is where most nail growth occurs. Despite being made of dead cells, nails serve important functions including protecting the fingertips, enhancing the sense of touch, and allowing for fine manipulation of small objects. Venus is the hottest planet in our solar system, even though Mercury is closer to the Sun. Venus has a thick atmosphere made mostly of carbon dioxide with clouds of sulfuric acid, creating an extreme greenhouse effect that traps heat. The surface temperature on Venus averages about 867 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt lead. The atmospheric pressure on Venus is about 90 times greater than on Earth, equivalent to being 3,000 feet underwater. Venus also rotates in the opposite direction of most planets, and it rotates so slowly that a day on Venus lasts longer than a year on Venus. It takes Venus about 243 Earth days to complete one rotation, but only about 225 Earth days to orbit the Sun. This means the Sun rises in the west and sets in the east on Venus, and there are only about 2 Venusian days in each Venusian year. Your brain uses about 20% of your body's total energy consumption, despite making up only about 2% of your body weight. Most of this energy goes toward maintaining the electrical potential across neuron membranes and supporting the constant communication between neurons. Even when you're sleeping, your brain remains highly active, consuming only slightly less energy than when you're awake. During sleep, your brain consolidates memories, clears out metabolic waste products, and performs maintenance activities that are difficult to do while you're awake. The brain has its own waste clearance system called the glymphatic system, which becomes much more active during sleep. Cerebrospinal fluid flows through the brain tissue, flushing out proteins and other waste products that accumulate during waking hours. This is one reason why chronic sleep deprivation can lead to cognitive problems. Without adequate sleep, the brain cannot properly clear these waste products. Glass is technically a liquid, not a solid, though it's a liquid with such high viscosity that it appears solid and maintains its shape indefinitely at room temperature. Glass is an amorphous solid, meaning its molecules are arranged randomly like a liquid, rather than in an organized crystal structure like most solids. The common myth that old windows are thicker at the bottom because glass flows slowly over centuries is false. The variation in thickness is due to manufacturing processes used when the glass was made. However, glass does flow, just incredibly slowly. If you could observe a pane of glass for millions of years, you might see it gradually deform under its own weight. Glass is made by heating sand, primarily silicon dioxide, along with other materials like soda ash and limestone to temperatures above 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit until it melts. The molten mixture is then cooled rapidly, preventing the molecules from arranging themselves into an orderly crystal structure. This process can be used to create many different types of glass with different properties by varying the composition and manufacturing process. Bees can recognize human faces. Studies have shown that honeybees can learn to identify and remember individual human faces, even though their brains are tiny and they've never encountered faces in their evolutionary history. Bees accomplish this by breaking down faces into patterns and components that they can process and remember. A bee's brain contains only about 1 million neurons compared to the 86 billion in a human brain. Yet this tiny brain can perform complex tasks including navigation, communication through the waggle dance, and facial recognition. Bees also have an excellent sense of time and can learn to visit flowers at specific times of day when those flowers produce the most nectar. Some species of bees can count up to 4 and understand the concept of 0. Despite their small brains, bees demonstrate that intelligence and complex behavior don't necessarily require large brains, but rather efficient use of the neurons available. The Amazon rainforest produces about 20% of Earth's oxygen, which is why it's often called the lungs of the Earth. However, the rainforest also consumes nearly all the oxygen it produces through decomposition and respiration, so the net oxygen contribution is close to 0. The real importance of the Amazon is its role in the water cycle and climate regulation. The forest releases vast amounts of water vapor into the atmosphere through transpiration, creating rivers of moisture in the sky that influence weather patterns across South America and beyond. The Amazon also stores enormous amounts of carbon in its trees and soil, helping to regulate Earth's climate. The forest contains about 10% of all species on Earth, including many that haven't been discovered or studied yet. Scientists estimate that a single tree in the Amazon can host over 1,000 different species of insects, and a small area of rainforest can contain more species of trees than all of North America. Neutron stars are among the densest objects in the universe. They form when massive stars explode in supernovae and their cores collapse under gravity. A neutron star packs more mass than the Sun into a sphere only about 12 miles in diameter. A teaspoon of neutron star material would weigh about 1 billion tons on Earth. The gravity on a neutron star's surface is about 2 billion times stronger than Earth's gravity. If you could somehow stand on a neutron star, you would weigh the same as Mount Everest weighs on Earth. Neutron stars rotate incredibly fast, some completing hundreds of rotations per second. As they rotate, they emit beams of radiation that sweep across space like a lighthouse beam. When these beams point toward Earth, we detect regular pulses of radiation, which is why some neutron stars are called pulsars. The fastest known pulsar rotates 716 times per second, and scientists use these incredibly regular pulses as cosmic clocks to test theories about gravity. Antarctica is the driest continent on Earth, receiving less precipitation than any desert. Parts of Antarctica, particularly the Dry Valleys region, haven't seen rain in over 2 million years. Despite being covered in ice, Antarctica is technically a desert because it receives so little precipitation. The ice that covers Antarctica accumulated over millions of years from small amounts of snow that never melted. This ice sheet contains about 90% of Earth's ice and 70% of its fresh water. If all this ice melted, global sea levels would rise by about 200 feet, flooding coastal cities around the world. The ice in Antarctica can be over 2 miles thick in some places. And ice cores drilled from the Antarctic ice sheet provide valuable information about Earth's climate history going back hundreds of thousands of years. Bubbles of ancient air trapped in the ice preserve samples of the atmosphere from the past, allowing scientists to measure carbon dioxide levels and temperatures from before humans existed. Hummingbirds have the highest metabolism of any animal relative to their size. Their hearts can beat over 1,000 times per minute, and they must eat about half their body weight in nectar each day to maintain their energy levels. A hummingbird's wings can beat up to 80 times per second during normal flight, and even faster during courtship displays. They are the only birds that can fly backwards, upside down, and hover in place. To accomplish these feats, hummingbirds have a unique shoulder joint that allows them to rotate their wings in a figure-8 pattern. During torpor, a hibernation-like state they enter at night to conserve energy, a hummingbird's metabolic rate can drop to about 1/50th of its normal rate, and its body temperature can fall to near ambient temperature. Without this ability to enter torpor, hummingbirds would starve to death overnight. Some species of hummingbirds migrate thousands of miles, with the ruby-throated hummingbird flying non-stop for up to 20 hours across the Gulf of Mexico during migration. The universe contains more stars than all the grains of sand on all the beaches on Earth. Astronomers estimate there are roughly 7 followed by 22 zeros, or 700 billion trillion stars in the observable universe. To put this in perspective, if you counted 1 star per second, it would take you longer than the current age of the universe to count them all. Yet despite this enormous number, stars make up only a small fraction of the universe's mass and energy. Most of the universe consists of dark matter and dark energy, mysterious components that we cannot directly observe but know exist because of their gravitational effects and influence on the universe's expansion. The stars we can see are concentrated in galaxies, and the space between galaxies is mostly empty. If you were in intergalactic space, the night sky would be almost completely black, with only a few faint smudges of light from distant galaxies. Dragonflies have been around for over 300 million years and are among the oldest flying insects. Ancient dragonflies had wingspans of over 2 feet, making them some of the largest insects ever to exist. Modern dragonflies are smaller but are incredibly skilled flyers, able to hover, fly backwards, and change direction almost instantly. They can reach speeds of about 30 miles per hour and catch their prey in midair with a success rate of over 95%, making them one of the most effective predators in the animal kingdom. Dragonflies have enormous compound eyes that can contain up to 30,000 individual lenses, giving them nearly 360-degree vision. They can see wavelengths of light that are invisible to humans, including ultraviolet light. Their brains process visual information incredibly quickly, allowing them to track and intercept fast-moving prey. Dragonfly larvae, called nymphs, are aquatic and can live underwater for several years before emerging as adults that typically live for only a few months. Mushrooms are more closely related to animals than to plants. Fungi form their own kingdom of life, distinct from plants, animals, and bacteria. Like animals, fungi cannot produce their own food through photosynthesis and must consume organic matter. Fungi also store energy as glycogen rather than starch, just like animals do. The mushrooms we see are just the fruiting bodies of fungi, like apples on a tree. The main body of the fungus consists of a network of thin filaments called hyphae that spread through soil, wood, or other substrates. Some fungal networks can be enormous, spanning many acres and weighing thousands of pounds. Fungi play crucial roles in ecosystems by decomposing dead organic matter and recycling nutrients. They also form partnerships with plants, with mycorrhizal fungi helping plants absorb water and nutrients while receiving sugars in return. Many medicines come from fungi, including penicillin, one of the first antibiotics, which was discovered in a fungus by Alexander Fleming in 1928. The Earth's core is about as hot as the surface of the sun, reaching temperatures of about 9,000 to 13,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This intense heat comes from two main sources: residual heat from Earth's formation about 4.5 billion years ago, and radioactive decay of elements like uranium and thorium in Earth's interior. The core is divided into two parts: a solid inner core made primarily of iron and nickel, and a liquid outer core also made of iron and nickel. The movement of the liquid outer core generates Earth's magnetic field through a process called the geodynamo. This magnetic field extends thousands of miles into space and protects Earth from solar wind and cosmic radiation. Without this protective magnetic field, solar wind would gradually strip away Earth's atmosphere as it has done on Mars, which has only a weak magnetic field. The Earth's core is under enormous pressure, about 3.5 million times atmospheric pressure at sea level, which is why the inner core remains solid despite being hotter than the melting point of iron at Earth's surface. Bamboo is one of the fastest growing plants on Earth, with some species capable of growing over 3 feet in a single day under ideal conditions. You can literally watch bamboo grow if you're patient enough, though the fastest growth occurs at night. Bamboo is actually a type of grass, not a tree, and it has an unusual flowering pattern. Most bamboo species flower synchronously every several decades, with all plants of the same species flowering at the same time regardless of location or climate. After flowering and producing seeds, the bamboo plants die. This synchronous flowering and dying can have significant ecological impacts, as happened in India when bamboo forests flowered and died, causing famine among rats that normally fed on bamboo seeds, which then invaded human agricultural areas. Bamboo is incredibly strong for its weight, with a tensile strength comparable to steel in some species. It has been used for thousands of years in construction, and modern engineers are rediscovering bamboo as a sustainable building material. Your blood vessels, if laid end to end, would stretch about 60,000 miles, enough to wrap around the Earth more than twice. Blood travels through this vast network constantly, making a complete circuit through your body about once every minute. Your heart pumps approximately 2,000 gallons of blood each day through this system. Blood consists of 4 main components: red blood cells that carry oxygen, white blood cells that fight infection, platelets that help blood clot, and plasma, the liquid portion that carries nutrients, hormones, and waste products. Red blood cells are produced in bone marrow at a rate of about 2 million cells per second, and each cell lives for about 120 days before being recycled. The iron from old red blood cells is reclaimed and used to make new ones, which is why your body can function with relatively small amounts of dietary iron. Blood type is determined by specific proteins on the surface of red blood cells, and receiving blood from an incompatible type can trigger a dangerous immune response. Crows are among the most intelligent birds and exhibit behaviors that suggest complex thinking. They can make and use tools, solve multi-step problems, and even hold grudges. Studies have shown that crows can remember individual human faces and will warn other crows about people who have threatened them. This information can be passed down through generations, with young crows learning to recognize and avoid dangerous people from their parents. Crows have been observed using cars to crack nuts by placing them on roads and waiting for vehicles to run over them, then retrieving the nut meat when traffic clears. They can understand cause and effect, as demonstrated by their ability to solve problems like using one tool to obtain another tool needed for a task. Crows also show evidence of play behavior and what might be called creativity, engaging in activities like sliding down snow-covered roofs or playing with objects for no apparent purpose other than enjoyment. Their brain-to-body ratio is similar to that of great apes and dolphins, and they have a particularly well-developed forebrain region associated with intelligence. Earthquakes can make days shorter by redistributing Earth's mass. The massive earthquake that struck Japan in 2011 moved so much rock that it changed Earth's moment of inertia, causing the planet to spin slightly faster and shortening each day by about 1.8 microseconds. Similarly, the 2004 Sumatra earthquake shortened days by about 6.8 microseconds. These changes are permanent but incredibly small, far too small to notice in daily life, but measurable with atomic clocks. The Earth's rotation is actually slowing down over geological time scales due to tidal friction with the Moon, making days gradually longer. 600 million years ago, a day was only about 21 hours long. In the distant future, days will continue to get longer, though the change is so gradual that it takes thousands of years to add even 1 second to the length of a day. Scientists must occasionally add leap seconds to our clocks to keep them synchronized with Earth's actual rotation. The Sahara Desert was once green and fertile, covered with lakes, rivers, and vegetation. This green Sahara period occurred several times in Earth's history, most recently ending about 5,000 years ago. Changes in Earth's orbital parameters altered the amount of solar radiation different parts of Earth received, causing shifts in rainfall patterns. When the Sahara was green, it was home to hippos, crocodiles, and human settlements. Rock art found in the Sahara depicts animals and environments that would be impossible in today's desert climate. The transition from green Sahara to desert happened relatively quickly in geological terms, over just a few thousand years. Climate scientists study these past changes to better understand how climate systems can shift and what triggers such dramatic transformations. The Sahara continues to change, with satellite data showing that it has grown about 10% larger since 1920, though the expansion rate varies and even reverses during wet periods. Snowflakes are formed when water vapor in clouds freezes onto dust or pollen particles. As the ice crystal falls through clouds with different temperature and humidity levels, it grows into increasingly complex shapes. The saying that no two snowflakes are alike is generally true for large, complex snowflakes, because the exact path each crystal takes through the clouds is unique, resulting in unique growth patterns. However small, simple snowflakes can look very similar or even identical. Snowflakes always have 6 sides because of the molecular structure of ice, in which water molecules naturally arrange themselves in hexagonal patterns. The amazing variety of snowflake shapes arises from subtle differences in temperature and humidity during crystal growth. Scientists have identified over 80 different snowflake shapes and have created detailed classification systems for snow crystals. Under the right conditions, snowflakes can grow to enormous sizes, with the largest snowflake on record measuring 15 inches across. Snow is also an excellent insulator, which is why animals can survive in snow caves and why snow-covered ground stays warmer than bare ground during cold weather. The human immune system is incredibly complex, involving trillions of cells working together to defend against pathogens. Your immune system can distinguish between millions of different potential threats and respond specifically to each one. When a pathogen enters your body, immune cells called B cells and T cells learn to recognize it and create targeted responses. Some of these cells become memory cells that remember the pathogen for years or even decades, providing long-lasting immunity. This is why you typically only get certain diseases like chickenpox once, and it's the principle behind vaccination. The immune system faces a significant challenge in distinguishing between your own cells and foreign invaders, a process called self-tolerance. Sometimes this system malfunctions, leading to autoimmune diseases where the immune system attacks the body's own tissues. The immune system is also why organ transplantation is so challenging. The recipient's immune system recognizes the transplanted organ as foreign and tries to reject it, requiring lifelong immunosuppressant drugs to prevent rejection. Saturn's rings are not solid but consist of countless individual particles, ranging in size from tiny grains to house-sized boulders. These particles are mostly water ice mixed with rock and dust. The rings extend hundreds of thousands of miles from Saturn, but are surprisingly thin, typically only about 30 feet thick. If you could somehow compress all the material in Saturn's rings into a single moon, it would be less than half the size of Earth's moon. The rings are thought to be relatively young in astronomical terms, perhaps only a few 100 million years old, possibly formed from the breakup of a moon or comet. The particles in the rings orbit Saturn at different speeds, depending on their distance from the planet, following Kepler's laws of planetary motion. Close-up observations by space probes have revealed that the rings have incredibly detailed structure, with thousands of individual ringlets separated by gaps. Some of these gaps are maintained by small moons orbiting within the rings, whose gravity sweeps particles away. The rings are also not permanent features. They are slowly falling into Saturn due to gravity and will eventually disappear in about 100 million years. The mantis shrimp has the most complex eyes in the animal kingdom. While humans have 3 types of color receptors, mantis shrimp have 16 types, allowing them to see a vastly greater range of colors including ultraviolet and polarized light. They can move each eye independently and perceive depth with a single eye, something most animals cannot do. Mantis shrimp also have the fastest strike in the animal kingdom, capable of punching with their club-like front limbs at speeds up to 50 miles per hour. The acceleration is so rapid that it creates cavitation bubbles in the water, which collapse with a secondary shock wave and a flash of light. This double strike, the physical impact plus the shock wave, can crack aquarium glass and is powerful enough to kill prey instantly. The force of the strike is about 2,500 times the mantis shrimp's body weight. If a human could accelerate their arm at the same rate, they could throw a baseball into orbit. Sunlight takes about 8 minutes to travel from the sun to Earth, so we always see the sun as it was 8 minutes ago. But the light itself was created in the sun's core millions of years earlier. Photons produced by fusion reactions in the sun's core take a random walk through the dense solar interior, being absorbed and re-emitted countless times. The journey from the core to the surface takes anywhere from 10,000 to 170,000 years, depending on the photon's random path. Once a photon finally escapes the sun's surface, it travels through the vacuum of space to Earth in just 8 minutes. This means the sunlight warming your face was created in nuclear fusion reactions before modern humans existed, then spent tens of thousands of years bouncing around inside the sun before finally escaping into space. The Pacific Ocean is so large that all the continents could fit inside it with room to spare. It covers more than 63 million square miles, about 1/3 of Earth's surface. The Pacific contains about half of all the water in all the world's oceans combined. The deepest point on Earth, the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench, lies in the Pacific at a depth of nearly 36,000 feet. If Mount Everest were placed in the Challenger Deep, its peak would still be over a mile underwater. The Pacific Ocean basin is shrinking by about an inch per year, as the oceanic plates are subducted beneath continental plates in a process that has been ongoing for millions of years. In contrast, the Atlantic Ocean is growing at about the same rate as the Pacific is shrinking. Over millions of years, this process will dramatically reshape Earth's geography, with all continents potentially coming together again in a new supercontinent. Diamonds are not actually rare. They're quite common in Earth's mantle and are brought to the surface by volcanic eruptions. The reason diamonds are expensive is due to market control by a few large companies that limit supply. Diamonds are formed deep in Earth's mantle under extreme pressure and temperature, about 100 miles below the surface. They are brought to the surface in volcanic pipes called kimberlites, rising at speeds of up to 40 miles per hour. If diamonds rose more slowly, they would convert to graphite during the ascent. Diamonds are the hardest naturally occurring material, rated 10 on the Mohs hardness scale, but they are not indestructible. A diamond can shatter if struck with a hard blow in the right direction along its cleavage planes. Diamonds are also flammable and will burn in the presence of oxygen at high temperatures. Industrial diamonds, most of which are now synthetic, are used in cutting tools, drill bits, and other applications where extreme hardness is needed. Synthetic diamonds can be made that are chemically identical to natural diamonds and are often more perfect than natural ones. Volcanoes have been observed on other planets and moons in our solar system. Olympus Mons on Mars is the largest volcano in the solar system, rising about 16 miles high and measuring about 374 miles in diameter at its base. It's so large that if you stood on its surface, the slope would extend beyond the horizon in all directions, and you wouldn't realize you were standing on a volcano. Jupiter's moon Io is the most volcanically active body in the solar system, with hundreds of active volcanoes constantly erupting. These eruptions can send plumes of sulfur and sulfur dioxide hundreds of miles into space. Io's intense volcanic activity is driven by tidal heating from Jupiter's powerful gravitational pull. Saturn's moon Enceladus has geysers that spew water, ice, and vapor from a subsurface ocean through cracks in its icy crust. These geysers create a plume of ice crystals that feeds Saturn's E-ring. The discovery of liquid water beneath Enceladus's surface makes it one of the most promising places to search for life beyond Earth. Cats have more bones than humans, with about 230 bones compared to the 206 bones in adult humans. Cats are born with even more bones, but some fuse together as they mature, just like human babies. A cat's skeleton gives it exceptional flexibility. Cats can rotate their spine more than other animals, allowing them to right themselves during falls and squeeze through tight spaces. The cat's collarbone is free-floating, not attached to other bones, giving their shoulders exceptional range of motion. This is why cats can fit through any opening their head can fit through. Cats also have an excellent sense of balance aided by their inner ear structure and their tail, which they use as a counterbalance. When a cat falls, it uses a combination of vision and its inner ear vestibular system to determine which way is up, then rotates its body to land on its feet. A reflex called the righting reflex that appears in kittens by 3 to 4 weeks of age. The human voice is unique to each individual, as distinctive as fingerprints. Your voice is produced by air from your lungs passing through your vocal cords, causing them to vibrate. The sound is then shaped by your tongue, lips, teeth, and the size and shape of your throat, mouth, and nasal cavities. All these factors combine to create your unique vocal signature. Voice recognition technology takes advantage of this uniqueness for security purposes. The pitch of your voice is determined by how quickly your vocal cords vibrate, which depends on their length, mass, and tension. Men typically have lower voices than women because testosterone causes the vocal cords to lengthen and thicken during puberty. Everyone's voice also changes with age, becoming higher and sometimes weaker in elderly adults as the vocal cords lose muscle tone and become thinner. Your voice sounds different to you than it does to others because you hear your own voice through both air conduction and bone conduction, while others hear it only through air conduction. This is why most people don't like how their voice sounds in recordings. Antarctica has the driest, windiest, and coldest conditions on Earth. The lowest temperature ever recorded on Earth, -128.6 degrees Fahrenheit, was measured at the Soviet Vostok station in Antarctica. Yet despite being covered in ice, Antarctica is home to several active volcanoes. Mount Erebus is the southernmost active volcano on Earth and contains a permanent lava lake in its summit crater. The extreme cold of Antarctica creates unique ice formations, including ice towers called penitents and ice caves that form from volcanic heat or hot springs beneath the ice. Antarctica is also the best place on Earth to find meteorites because the dark rocks stand out against the white ice, and the dry, cold conditions preserve them well. Thousands of meteorites have been collected in Antarctica, including some that came from Mars and the Moon, blasted off those bodies by ancient asteroid impacts. The rings of trees tell the story of their lives and the environment in which they grew. Each ring represents 1 year of growth, with wide rings indicating good growing conditions and narrow rings indicating stress from drought, cold, or other factors. By studying tree rings, scientists can reconstruct past climate conditions going back thousands of years. The oldest known living tree is a bristlecone pine in California that is over 4,800 years old, having started growing before the Egyptian pyramids were built. This tree was already over 2,000 years old when Jesus walked the earth. Even older are clonal trees like Pando, a grove of quaking aspens in Utah that are all genetically identical and connected by a shared root system. Pando is estimated to be about 80,000 years old, making it one of the oldest living organisms on Earth. Tree rings have also been used to precisely date historical events and archaeological sites, and to calibrate radiocarbon dating methods. The speed of smell is surprisingly fast but varies depending on air currents and distance. Smell molecules must travel through the air to reach your nose, so the speed depends on air movement. In still air, diffusion is slow, but with even a slight breeze, smells can travel quickly. Once smell molecules reach your nose and bind to receptors, the electrical signal travels to your brain at the speed of nerve impulse transmission, about 270 miles per hour. Your brain can identify a familiar smell in about 400 milliseconds, less than half a second. Some animals have much more sensitive senses of smell than humans. Dogs have about 300 million olfactory receptors, compared to about 6 million in humans. And the part of a dog's brain devoted to analyzing smells is proportionally 40 times larger than ours. This is why dogs can detect odors at concentrations nearly 100 million times lower than humans can, allowing them to track scents, detect explosives or drugs, and even smell certain diseases. Jupiter is so massive that it doesn't actually orbit the Sun, or at least not the way you might think. Jupiter is so large and has so much mass that the center of gravity between Jupiter and the Sun, called the barycenter, is actually above the Sun's surface. So Jupiter and the Sun orbit this point in space, with the Sun wobbling slightly in response to Jupiter's gravity. This same principle allows astronomers to detect planets orbiting other stars by watching for the wobble in the star's motion caused by orbiting planets. Jupiter's mass is 2.5 times greater than all other planets in the solar system combined. If Jupiter were much more massive, about 75 times its current mass, it would have enough mass to sustain hydrogen fusion and become a star rather than a planet. Jupiter's intense magnetic field is about 20,000 times stronger than Earth's and extends millions of miles into space. The radiation belts around Jupiter are so intense that they would be lethal to humans and can damage spacecraft electronics. Giraffes have the same number of neck vertebrae as humans and most other mammals, just 7. The difference is that each giraffe vertebra is much longer, about 10 inches each. A giraffe's neck can be over 6 feet long and weighs about 600 pounds. To pump blood up this long neck to the brain, giraffes have evolved extremely high blood pressure, about double that of humans. To prevent this high pressure from damaging the brain when the giraffe lowers its head to drink, they have a complex pressure regulation system, including elastic blood vessels, and a network of small blood vessels called the reedy mirabile that controls blood flow to the brain. Giraffes also have an unusually large heart, weighing about 25 pounds, to generate the necessary pressure. Their legs are about 6 feet long, and they walk by moving both legs on one side of their body together, giving them a distinctive gait. Despite their long necks and legs, giraffes can run at speeds up to 35 miles per hour over short distances. Archaeologists estimate that less than 1% of all archaeological sites have been discovered, and of those discovered, only a small fraction have been excavated. This means that vast amounts of human history remain buried and waiting to be found. New archaeological sites are discovered regularly, often by accident during construction or farming. Modern technology, including satellite imagery, LiDAR, ground-penetrating radar, and other remote sensing techniques, are revolutionizing archaeology by allowing scientists to find and map sites without digging. LiDAR has been particularly effective at finding ancient settlements hidden beneath jungle canopy, revealing massive cities that were previously unknown. DNA analysis and other scientific techniques allow archaeologists to learn things about ancient peoples that would have been impossible to discover just decades ago, including what they ate, what diseases they had, and how different populations were related to each other. Hurricanes are massive heat engines that transfer heat from the warm ocean surface to the upper atmosphere. The energy in a single hurricane is enormous, with a large hurricane releasing energy equivalent to a 10-megaton nuclear bomb every 20 minutes through the condensation of water vapor alone. Hurricanes form over warm ocean water, typically needing water temperatures of at least 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Warm, moist air rises rapidly, creating an area of low pressure at the surface. More air rushes in to fill this low-pressure area and is also heated and rises, creating a cycle that builds and intensifies. The Coriolis effect caused by Earth's rotation causes the rising air to spiral. Hurricanes cannot form within about 300 miles of the equator because the Coriolis effect is too weak there. The eye of a hurricane is an area of calm conditions and clear skies in the center, typically 20 to 40 miles in diameter. Surrounded by the eye wall, where the strongest winds and heaviest rain occur. Hurricanes weaken rapidly once they move over land because they are cut off from their energy source, the warm ocean water. Your bones are living tissue that is constantly being broken down and rebuilt in a process called remodeling. About 10% of your skeleton is replaced each year. This process allows bones to repair minor damage, adjust to stress by becoming stronger where needed, and release calcium into the blood when needed for other body functions. Bones store about 99% of the body's calcium and serve as a mineral reservoir. Bone remodeling is carried out by two types of cells: osteoclasts that break down old bone and osteoblasts that build new bone. This process is carefully regulated by hormones including parathyroid hormone, calcitonin, and vitamin D. When the balance between breakdown and rebuilding is disrupted, problems occur. If too much bone is broken down and not replaced, bones become weak and brittle, a condition called osteoporosis. Weight-bearing exercise helps maintain bone strength by stimulating osteoblasts to build more bone. This is why astronauts can lose significant bone mass during long stays in space, where there is no gravity to create mechanical stress on bones. Sound waves cannot travel through space because there are no molecules to vibrate and carry the wave. But space is not completely empty. The space between stars contains about 1 atom per cubic centimeter on average, while the space between galaxies contains even less, about 1 atom per cubic meter. This is an almost perfect vacuum by Earth standards, but across the vast distances of space, even this tiny amount of matter adds up to significant mass. The matter between stars, called the interstellar medium, consists mostly of hydrogen and helium gas, along with trace amounts of heavier elements and dust particles. This material plays important roles in star formation, as dense clouds of interstellar gas and dust collapse under their own gravity to form new stars and planets. The dust in space also affects our view of distant objects, scattering and absorbing light in ways that make distant stars appear redder and dimmer than they actually are. The fastest man-made object is the Parker Solar Probe, which reached speeds of over 430,000 miles per hour as it dove close to the Sun. At this speed, the probe could travel from New York to Los Angeles in less than 20 seconds. The probe achieves these incredible speeds by using gravity assists from Venus and falling into the Sun's enormous gravitational well. The Parker Solar Probe is designed to study the Sun's corona and solar wind, flying closer to the Sun than any previous spacecraft. To survive the intense heat, the probe has a special heat shield made of carbon composite that can withstand temperatures of over 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, while keeping the instruments behind it at a comfortable room temperature. The probe's discoveries are helping scientists understand the solar wind, the stream of charged particles that flows from the Sun throughout the solar system, and solve the mystery of why the Sun's corona is millions of degrees hotter than its surface. Jellyfish have been drifting through Earth's oceans for over 500 million years, making them some of the oldest animals on Earth. They appeared before dinosaurs, before trees, even before most fish. Despite their simple appearance, jellyfish are remarkably successful animals found in every ocean from the surface to the deep sea. Some species are immortal in a biological sense. The Turritopsis doanae, also called the immortal jellyfish, can revert back to its juvenile polyp stage after reaching sexual maturity, essentially resetting its life cycle. This means it can theoretically live forever, though in practice most are eaten by predators or succumb to disease. Jellyfish have no brain, no heart, and no blood. Their nervous system is a simple nerve net that allows them to sense light, detect chemicals, and respond to touch. Some jellyfish species are bioluminescent and produce their own light through chemical reactions. The box jellyfish has 24 eyes arranged in 4 clusters, despite having no brain to process the visual information in the way we understand it. The observable universe has a horizon beyond which we cannot see, not because our telescopes aren't powerful enough, but because the light from more distant regions hasn't had time to reach us yet. The universe is about 13.8 billion years old, so light from objects more than about 46.5 billion light-years away has not had time to reach us. You might wonder why the distance is more than 13.8 billion light-years, if the universe is only 13.8 billion years old. The answer is that the universe has been expanding while the light has been traveling, stretching the distance the light had to cover. Beyond the observable universe horizon, there is more universe, potentially infinite in extent, but we can never see it or communicate with it because nothing can travel faster than light. As time passes, the observable universe will grow as light from more distant regions reaches us. But the acceleration of the universe's expansion means that galaxies beyond a certain distance are receding faster than light could ever reach us. So there are regions we will never be able to see no matter how long we wait. Rest now and allow your mind to absorb these wonders of science and nature, letting the knowledge settle into your consciousness as you drift into peaceful sleep. The human liver is an extraordinary organ capable of performing over 500 different functions essential to life. It processes nutrients from the digestive system, produces bile for digestion, filters toxins from the blood, stores vitamins and minerals, regulates blood sugar levels, produces blood clotting factors, and breaks down old red blood cells. The liver is also the only internal organ capable of regenerating itself. If part of the liver is removed, it can grow back to its full size in as little as a few months. This regenerative ability is so powerful that you could donate up to 60% of your liver to another person, and both your liver and the recipient's portion would grow back to full size. Scientists are still studying how the liver knows when it has reached the correct size and stops growing. The liver processes about 1.4 liters of blood every minute, filtering out harmful substances while allowing beneficial nutrients to pass through to the rest of the body. Auroras, also known as the northern and southern lights, are created when charged particles from the solar wind collide with gases in Earth's atmosphere. These collisions excite atoms of oxygen and nitrogen, causing them to emit light. Oxygen produces green and red light, while nitrogen produces blue and purple light. Auroras typically occur at high latitudes near the magnetic poles, because Earth's magnetic field funnels charged particles toward the poles. During particularly strong solar storms, auroras can be visible at much lower latitudes than usual. Auroras have been observed on other planets including Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, which all have magnetic fields and atmospheres. Jupiter's auroras are the largest in the solar system, much bigger than the entire planet Earth, and are hundreds of times more powerful than Earth's auroras. The auroras on Jupiter are caused partly by the solar wind, but also by charged particles thrown off by volcanic eruptions on its moon Io. Ants are among the most successful animals on Earth, with a combined weight that roughly equals the combined weight of all humans. There are estimated to be about 20 quadrillion ants alive at any given time, representing about 20,000 different species. Some ant colonies can contain millions of individuals working together in complex social structures, with different castes performing specialized roles. Leafcutter ants practice agriculture, cultivating fungus gardens that they feed with pieces of leaves they harvest. The fungus breaks down the leaves and provides food for the ants. Fire ants can link their bodies together to form rafts that float on water, allowing entire colonies to survive floods. Army ants conduct massive hunting raids with millions of individuals moving together, overwhelming any prey in their path. Ants can carry objects many times their own body weight, with some species able to lift 50 times their weight. If humans had equivalent strength relative to body size, we could lift cars over our heads. Ants communicate primarily through chemical signals called pheromones, laying down scent trails that other ants can follow to food sources. The Fibonacci sequence appears throughout nature in surprising ways. This sequence, where each number is the sum of the two preceding numbers, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on, describes many natural patterns. The arrangement of leaves around a stem, the spiral pattern of seeds in a sunflower, the spiral of a nautilus shell, the branching of trees, and the arrangement of pine cones all follow Fibonacci numbers. The reason this pattern appears so often is related to optimal packing and growth patterns. For example, seeds arranged in a Fibonacci spiral in a sunflower head achieve the most efficient packing, allowing the maximum number of seeds to fit in the available space. The Fibonacci sequence is closely related to the golden ratio, approximately 1.618, which also appears frequently in nature and has been used by artists and architects for thousands of years because of its aesthetically pleasing proportions. Your stomach produces a new layer of mucus every 2 weeks to protect itself from being digested by its own acid. Without this protective mucus layer, the hydrochloric acid in your stomach would dissolve the stomach lining. The cells that produce this mucus are constantly at work, and if they don't produce enough mucus or if the mucus layer is damaged, stomach acid can cause ulcers. The stomach's ability to produce strong acid is remarkable given that this acid is strong enough to dissolve metal. The stomach maintains this extreme acidity because it's essential for breaking down proteins and killing bacteria that might be present in food. The small intestine, in contrast, is alkaline, so food passing from the stomach to the small intestine must be neutralized by bicarbonate secreted by the pancreas. This change in pH is crucial for allowing different digestive enzymes to work optimally in different parts of the digestive system. Meteorites are pieces of asteroids or other celestial bodies that survive the journey through Earth's atmosphere and reach the ground. Most meteors, often called shooting stars, are tiny particles that burn up completely in the atmosphere, but larger objects can survive and impact Earth's surface. About 48,000 tons of meteoritic material falls to Earth each year, though most of it is in the form of tiny dust particles. Large meteorite impacts are rare but can be devastating. The asteroid that struck Earth 66 million years ago and contributed to the extinction of the dinosaurs released energy equivalent to billions of nuclear bombs and left a crater over 100 miles in diameter. The impact threw so much dust and debris into the atmosphere that it blocked sunlight for months or years, causing a global winter. Smaller meteorite impacts occur more frequently, but most happen in oceans or uninhabited areas and go unnoticed. Scientists study meteorites to learn about the early solar system, as many meteorites are unchanged since they formed over 4.5 billion years ago. The human heart begins beating about 3 weeks after conception and doesn't stop until death, beating over 2.5 billion times in an average lifetime. The heart is divided into 4 chambers, 2 atria that receive blood and 2 ventricles that pump blood out. The right side of the heart pumps blood to the lungs where it picks up oxygen, while the left side pumps oxygenated blood to the rest of the body. The left ventricle has the thickest muscle walls because it must generate enough pressure to push blood through the entire body. The heart has its own electrical system that regulates the heartbeat, and this system can function independently of the nervous system, which is why a heart can continue beating even outside the body if kept in the right conditions. The heart muscle never rests, working continuously every second of your life, making it one of the hardest working muscles in the body. To supply its own needs, the heart muscle receives blood through coronary arteries, and when these arteries become blocked, it causes a heart attack. Clouds of antimatter exist in space, particularly around black holes and neutron stars. Antimatter is like regular matter except that particles have opposite electrical charges. When matter and antimatter meet, they annihilate each other in a burst of pure energy. This makes antimatter incredibly powerful as a potential energy source, but also incredibly difficult to produce and store. The Large Hadron Collider and other particle accelerators can create antimatter, but only in tiny amounts. It would take billions of years to produce a single gram of antimatter using current technology, and the energy required to make antimatter is far greater than the energy you could get back from it. Scientists are studying antimatter to understand fundamental physics and why the universe contains so much more matter than antimatter. According to our understanding of physics, The Big Bang should have created equal amounts of matter and antimatter, but almost all the antimatter has disappeared, leaving only matter to form galaxies, stars, and planets. This asymmetry is one of the great unsolved mysteries in physics. Earthquakes generate different types of seismic waves that travel through Earth at different speeds. Primary waves, or P waves, are compression waves that can travel through solids, liquids, and gases, and they're the fastest seismic waves, traveling at speeds of up to 8 kilometers per second through Earth's mantle. Secondary waves, or S waves, are shear waves that can only travel through solids, not through liquids, which is how scientists determine that Earth has a liquid outer core, because S waves from earthquakes disappear when they try to pass through it. Surface waves travel along Earth's surface and cause most of the damage during earthquakes because they have larger amplitudes and longer durations than body waves. By studying how seismic waves from earthquakes travel through Earth, scientists have created detailed maps of Earth's interior structure without ever directly sampling material from more than a few miles below the surface. Seismology has revealed that Earth consists of distinct layers: a thin crust, a thick mantle, and a core divided into liquid outer and solid inner portions. Redwood trees, the tallest trees on Earth, can grow over 300 feet tall and live for over 2,000 years. These giants create their own weather systems, capturing fog from the ocean and channeling it down to their roots in the forest floor. The fog provides a significant portion of the water these trees need, especially during California's dry summers. Redwoods have several remarkable adaptations that allow them to grow so tall. Their wood contains very little resin, making it resistant to fire, insects, and rot. They can sprout new growth from their roots, creating circles of genetically identical trees around a parent tree. The tallest known tree, a coast redwood named Hyperion, stands 379 feet tall, taller than the Statue of Liberty. Climbing to the top of a redwood reveals an entirely different ecosystem, with unique plants, animals, and even soil that exists nowhere else. Having been created from accumulated organic matter in the tree's upper branches over centuries. The deepest hole ever drilled by humans is the Kola superdeep borehole in Russia, which reaches a depth of about 7.5 miles. Despite this impressive depth, the hole barely scratches Earth's surface, penetrating less than 1/3 of the distance to Earth's center. The project was abandoned when temperatures at the bottom reached over 350 degrees Fahrenheit, much hotter than expected, and the rock became more like plastic than solid, making further drilling impossible. The borehole provided valuable scientific data about Earth's crust, including the discovery of microscopic fossils at depths where scientists didn't expect to find them, and water in rock formations that were thought to be completely dry. The borehole also revealed that the boundary between different types of rock that had been detected by seismic studies wasn't caused by a change in rock type as expected, but by changes in the rock caused by extreme pressure and temperature. Sleep is essential for survival, and yet scientists still don't fully understand why we need it. What we do know is that during sleep, your brain is incredibly active, consolidating memories, clearing out metabolic waste, and performing maintenance that's difficult to do while you're awake. Different stages of sleep serve different purposes. During REM sleep, when most vivid dreaming occurs, your brain is nearly as active as when you're awake, but your body is paralyzed except for your eyes and breathing muscles. This paralysis prevents you from acting out your dreams. During deep sleep, your brain produces slow, synchronized waves of neural activity, and this is when the most restorative processes occur. Your brain's glymphatic system becomes much more active during sleep, flushing out proteins and other waste products that accumulate during waking hours. Chronic sleep deprivation has serious health consequences, increasing the risk of obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and cognitive decline. Even a single night of poor sleep can affect your memory, decision-making, and emotional regulation. Butterflies remember things they learned as caterpillars, even though they completely transform during metamorphosis. Inside the cocoon, the caterpillar essentially dissolves into a soup of cells before reorganizing into a butterfly. Yet somehow certain memories persist through this radical transformation. This suggests that memory might be stored not just in specific neural connections, but perhaps in more distributed ways throughout the nervous system. The transformation from caterpillar to butterfly is one of the most dramatic metamorphoses in nature. The caterpillar digests itself from the inside, using special cells called imaginal discs that were present in the caterpillar's body all along, but remained dormant until metamorphosis. These imaginal discs rapidly divide and differentiate to form the butterfly's wings, legs, antennae, and other adult structures. The entire process takes about 2 weeks for many species, during which the pupa remains seemingly inactive while incredible changes occur inside. The speed of light in a vacuum is constant, but light slows down when it travels through transparent materials like water or glass. This slowing is why light bends when it enters water, a phenomenon called refraction that's responsible for effects like the apparent bending of a stick placed in water or the way a swimming pool appears shallower than it really is. Light can even be slowed to a complete stop under special conditions. Scientists have created exotic states of matter called Bose-Einstein condensates that can slow light to just a few meters per second, and they've even stopped light completely, storing it for a brief time before releasing it to continue on its way. These experiments reveal the quantum nature of light and matter, and may lead to applications in quantum computing and communication. The study of light's behavior continues to reveal new insights into the fundamental nature of reality, and pushes the boundaries of what we thought was possible.